BS, I'm gonna kick your ass. What's up, man?
What up, yo?
No way.
I'm here to defend the honor of the problem of evil.
Oh no! Oh no!
Hey, really quick, could I ask a question before you guys get into this? For Zach, according to the Jews, what was happening?
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I covered a guy on a stream a while ago. He just went, hey. So people will, like, stoop to all sorts of things to, like, you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean?
Okay. Let's hear this.
So let me explain my position first, BS, before we go, so you don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I think that the problem of evil. I think that Yahweh is evil and demonstrates that, and I have no problem with saying it questions the omni properties of God. The issue is that on its own, it requires that you know things you don't know about God's mind and what God is the bigger picture of things for an all-knowing being. It requires that you place some kind of intent on God. And I think that it's correct that God is evil, but as an argument on its own, I think that philosophically they just squirm out of it. That's why I don't like it.
That's fair enough. I've actually
can I just a sec? I have a different reason why I think the problem of evil shit. Because it doesn't disprove God in the slightest. It just says he's not all good.
Yeah.
So you have to keep in mind what the motive is for using the problem of evil.
Wait, BS, before you start, I've got to. Oh, come on, play the thing.
Is this love? Yahweh, don't trust me. Don't trust me. Why, Lord? Yahweh, don't trust me. Don't trust me. Why, Lord?
I'm not playing the thing. Never mind. Go on.
It's beautiful.
That was good. That was a good segue into what I'm going to say.
Hurry up. Hit him in the knees, Zach. Hit him in the knees.
So I know people personally and online who have atheists who have said that the problem of evil has deconverted them. So if that's your goal, is to use the problem of evil to plant that seed of doubt to cause a deconversion, it works. And go ahead.
I think that's whatever works is right for that conversation. I don't disagree with any of that. I think whatever helps you get through to someone. I mean, as long as you're not being dishonest or something like that. Like whatever position you take that helps walk somebody through it is good. I just don't for that occasion. Overall, though, I just don't like it. Is all.
Yeah, best case scenario, you're going to get somebody deconvert. Worst case scenario, they're just going to change the mind of what type of God they believe in.
Did you just
what?
Did you just what's it called? Never mind. Go ahead.
I did it.
Sorry, I smoke a lot. I smoke a lot of weed.
So my problem with the problem of evil and how it's currently or commonly addressed is that people don't use the strongest form of it. The logical problem of evil is different than the experiential. A lot of times people use the problem of suffering, which isn't the problem of evil. It's just like a subset. The problem of evil is an overarching logical problem that has many subsets, like the problem of suffering, the problem of animal pain and suffering, yada, yada, yada. So I'm going to lay out some premises and a syllogism for you guys, and I want you to tell me if you agree or disagree.
BS means business. Yeah. BS means business today.
So everybody's welcome to partake in this, Andy, you too. Premise 1, God is omnibenevolent, omniscient, and omnipotent. From the Christian point of view.
Yeah.
Agree, disagree?
God is triomni, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Premise 2 is that evil exists, and evil is defined in this premise as what is contrary to God's omnibenevolent nature or will. So we're going definitional. We're going definitional here because you already agreed he's omnibenevolent. You've already been sucked into the definitional problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, but benevolent doesn't mean that you don't have to let evil happen.
Okay. Well, so you agree that evil exists then? You agree with premise 2?
Well, I mean,
I agree with
the sense
I
of this
agree with
argument,
this.
yeah.
Though.
In
I
the
agree with
Christian
what you're
framework,
saying.
Yeah.
premise 3, prior to creation, in a world of God alone, it would be logically impossible for evil to exist because of his omnibenevolent nature.
No, I think Christians can get around that by saying he's teaching others with other
Could you repeat it?
In a world of God alone, prior to creation, it would be logically impossible for evil to exist.
I don't know
tough.
on that one. I don't know
what I mean?
because
Damn, that's a good question.
There's some things to discuss in that one. I don't know. So,
if the only thing that exists is all good, then nothing else exists that is contrary to that, as we define evil.
But the Bible also says all that God does is good. So,
well, it also says that all evil comes from God too.
Yeah, God created evil, but it's for good.
You're skipping ahead to my conclusion here. So, with all those 3 premises here, we have God is omni-everything, premise 1. Evil exists, premise 2. And before creation, evil didn't exist, premise 3. The conclusion is, through the act of creation, God created evil. He was either unwilling, unable, or didn't know it was going to happen.
It depends on I would say it would depend, from the Christian point of view, depend on how fundamentalist you are, because God was in the waters with chaos, so evil was with God before things were made.
You could argue that evil is in his nature too. If we say that God is unchanging, then the fact that he causes evil, like later Isaiah 45:7, he says, I cause all good and all evil. That would imply that that's always been his nature, is to have evil too. So that you could make the argument that evil did predate humanity in God.
You've just dropped his omnibenevolent nature at that point.
Yeah. I know there's issues with it from no matter which angle. That's why I hate the fucking omnis.
So this is where we start to diverge. I think whenever you say that God is unwilling or unable, I think that goes and says that you somehow know the reasoning of God beyond the present moment. Because if we're talking about a tri-omni being that knows everything that's to come, that evil that exists could be for a greater good cause, and you have no way of knowing that, and so you're inserting your own reasoning into the mind of God, and so, you have no reason to know if God reasons that way.
You're knocking on the door of getting rid of premise 2, that evil exists, because remember how we defined evil, that it's by definition contrary to God's omnibenevolent nature or will. If he wills it,
I knew we were coming
evil.
Back to that.
Yeah, so if he wills it, it's not evil.
Right.
Greater good this covers the greater good theodicies and all that stuff, because the greater goods are basically saying that the evils aren't evil because they produce greater goods.
So if God is subjective or objectively good, then those things that we see as evil are just evil to us, not to God.
Yep, they're not evil by his definition of being contrary to his will or nature.
Right.
And so
I think
that's it. The only ways to get rid of this is to drop one of the omnis, become a Calvinist or an open theist, or deny that evil exists altogether. Christians usually don't want to do any of those.
Well, see, they do it. They always, but you're forgetting there's another Christian option that hasn't been mentioned. The devil does it, right? Because for some Christians, the devil is more powerful than God.
That's premise 3. You're gonna have to say that the devil existed before creation. in order for that to work.
So
he did. It says in the Bible chronology that he did, I believe. In
No, it
Job,
doesn't.
that was before. Oh no, right,
the
Job.
devil is a created being.
What am I
according to
thinking
The
of?
devil's not properly in the Bible.
Oh no, it
Well,
just says that some. It does says that some gods predate
Yeah.
creation, not necessarily the devil himself.
But I mean, I don't mean
So-
just creation of the world as we know. I mean the creation of angels and demons and everything. So
Oh,
the
okay.
creation of the devil wouldn't be included in that.
right. I think that I think again you run into this issue of there's also an option where evil to an individual is not the same as evil on the larger scale to God. And so, and I'm not saying I agree with this. I'm just saying this is why whenever you talk to an apologist, they try to squirm out of this argument, is because then God created evil and eventually things that are evil in order to tempt man, so that those that are deviants and bad people are tempted and taken away from God, and the elect and everyone else it gives a path to God. So you can make the argument that there is a greater good to creating evil.
So I agree with you. That's why I was careful in formulating the definition of evil in premise 2 the way I did, because it's dependent on God, not on man. And so I understand people say, why bad thing happened?
Why bad thing happened?
Oh, why bad thing happened? That's not what I'm getting addressed. My definition is to skirt around that.
Why bad thing happened?
To say that because we've already defined God as omnibenevolent. We've already ontologically said he's all good. Whatever is contrary to his nature and will is bad. So it's making it dependent on that first premise, making it stronger.
How much of the definition of evil did you use the definition of evil, and how much did you insert yourself?
This is a philosophical argument. This isn't a biblical one. I understand, but I also think that the philosophical God isn't the biblical God. This is to knock the shit out of precepts and philosophers.
Yeah.
Philosophically, I think you can argue for deism poorly, and that's it. With philosophy alone, anyway.
You'll be dropping premise 1.
Right. I think whenever you defined evil, give me your definition of evil again, real quick.
Since we defined God as omnibenevolent in premise 1, premise 2's definition of evil is that which is contrary to God's nature or will.
Yeah. So how do you know God's nature or will?
I don't need to know it for the argument. It's a definitional argument.
Right.
We're talking ontologies, not epistemologies. So just by it definitionally existing, I don't have to say I know this or I know that. All I have to say is that I have a suspicion that right now in this current point in history, there is something going on in the world that God doesn't like for evil.
Sure. I think though that the Bible says though that those things are God's will.
Then they're not evil according to definition 2 or premise 2.
Well, right, because again, I think that's whenever you get into what is evil to us is different to a being who you've said is objectively good, right? So what we call evil doesn't actually exist for God because it's a different being.
Yeah,
it's evil upon man, but
historically speaking, Voltaire was living in a time where this was going on as the main thing of the era, that everything is going according to God's plan. And so he became famous for his satire because he's like, well, what about the cancer? What about the parasites? This and that. He's poking jabs because everybody around him who was in this philosophical haze of Christianity was thinking that this is all God's will right now. All the bad stuff that's going that we think is good because it's according to God's will. He's poking fun at him. And my point being that people have tried this approach in times past where they just ignore what we would think was bad and just say it's good because it's God's good. It's going on. There's no reason why anything that God wouldn't want going on is going on.
God's will be done.
Which is harmful.
So let me rearrange some things real quick. So you and I have talked at length about the problem of deception and all that, right? So whenever you start talking about how the Bible describes the characteristics of God, right? It's very similar later to the characteristics of Satan in the New Testament.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when you take that and you say, see, there's this problem of deception that goes all the way back to the beginning of the Bible, and I'm not going to go over the points, you know them, but then you say, and evil exists, which supports that first point, and I just like it better that way. Is all. It's not a, you know.
Yeah, the problem of deception is like a subset of the problem of evil. It's like a conjunction when somebody refuses to let go of premise 2. Then you start challenging premise 2 with the problem of deception.
I think it lets you get away from trying to explain the mind of God. It takes away from that and says, I have evidence that supports this position. That, and, you know, like, I don't think that you're wrong or anything. That's not what I'm saying. I don't think it's effective many times with especially the philosophy bros.
No, they have their reasons around, but if you hold their feet to the fire on this, they're gonna have to end up dropping one of the 3 premises. Say that Satan exists before creation, or that God has an evil side to him, like that existed before creation. These are all denying the first omnibenevolent properties, or the famous just ignore evil, like a Calvinist, like White and Durbin, where they're like, oh yeah, God caused the Holocaust, you know, it's all according to his will. They're just ignoring evil exists completely.
Yeah. Well, I think whenever you get into like what is evil and the philosophical explanation of evil and why evil exists without presupposing a God, I think that that's all great stuff, and it may just be the case that I have a bias towards the problem of evil on its own, and so I don't care much for the argument on its own because it doesn't. I don't do well with it, I guess.
It'll depend on, like you said earlier, who you're targeting with it. Like if you're targeting some kind of autist who has like very strong, just the facts, ma'am. You know, little emotional attachment to the arguments. It'll work better on them. If somebody's super emotionally involved, like I love Jesus, you're gonna have a hard time. But that's where it's great about the problem of evil is you could have 2 prongs to attack, and for the love people, you get them to question, well, what is love? Is love a parasite?
Got to do with it.
I was thinking, what is love?
Baby, don't hurt me. Don't drown me. No more. Yeah, no, that's the real song, not the other one. What are you on about?
Because they have to explain why drowning is a loving act.
Because
I think
the cleansing waters of the baptism need to fill your lungs to reach all the darkest corners so its light can reach into you.
Well, remember, God's ultimate goal isn't to make you have a great experience here. God could care less about your physical form. It's all about the afterlife. So
just a sec. So Ember, we're supposed to be, and for anybody who's joined in a bit later, we're supposed to be watching Bible Bees, but then Joe and BS decided to talk about the problem of evil, which is fine.
Yeah,
I over encouraged him on. So yeah,
I think that.
And thank you very much for coming on, sir.
Yeah, no problem.
I think that like the apologetics that they use to talk about morality leads into like how they're going to escape the problem of evil in many cases anyway. And what you said about like different strokes for different folks. I mean, like I talk a lot about like I think AA and NA is crap. But if it's what you use to get clean and off drugs, it's the right way for you, right?
Yeah.
And whenever we talk about these philosophical arguments, some of them are more effective on some than others, right? So, I mean, you present it well. I think that do Christians give you a lot of shit about premise 2?
Yeah. It's the reason I formulated this defense was because I did an argument against Jim Bob's problem of evil, where I felt he's strawman the problem of evil. He gave the premise 1, like all the omnis, everybody agreed. Then he came in with problem 2, and he switched to the problem of suffering.
Yeah,
and he left the definition ambiguous and vague. Then moved on to his third conclusion.
Didn't you guys do a back and forth video about this?
I just did a response. There was no back and forth.
Oh, okay, that's what it was.
Well, yeah. I think he responded to my response.
I watch all your stuff.
Well, I appreciate it.
Your presentation is way better, shorter, to the point than every other freaking atheist channel I've ever seen.
You're one of my favorite creators, BS.
Yeah.
BS, but I figured I had to like hammer down the proper wording, because where it'll go wrong with the problem of evil is the failure to define terms. That's why I make sure my premise 2 is well defined, and it's actually tied into the premise 1. So if you agree on premise 1, you almost default have to agree on premise 2, because you're saying that God is omnibenevolent. Which, what does that mean? All good? We can argue about what that means all day, but who cares? The details don't matter. As long as you agree that omnibenevolent is all good, then premise 2's definition of evil follows.
You inspired me, BS. If Zach will show what I shared there.
The poo wizard, huh?
Yeah.
He actually has Kent Hovind. You bees should be thankful for Jesus, because it might be the wrong one. He loves you. It should be Kent Hovind's voice saying some stuff. That might be the wrong file. I haven't pulled it out in a while, but
yeah.
Oh, well, sorry.